If you had to guess what the leading cause of death in the United States was, I'm betting a lot of you would say gun deaths. With about 117 that die per day from gun deaths, you would be right. And when there's been a 40% increase in the last 30 years as well, this isn't just an issue, this is a public health crisis. Okay? And most Americans, as you can see, what the hell? Here. As you can see over there, most Americans actually want stricter gun control. They say guns are too easy to get. We need less guns. They want background checks. They want restricted use in public. And even they want to require training for individuals before they buy a gun. Now, you do have to walk kind of this thin line here, though, of you don't want to go too far to be too restrictive, but you also want to protect the people, right? And finding this line is kind of difficult. But in the current state of the world, this line is not possible to do because of this building right here. I don't know my left and right because of this building, okay? Because of this building. And you might be like, that doesn't make any sense. This building doesn't look like it does anything. Well, the National Rifle Association. These guys are the bad guys. Boo. We hate these guys. What do? Well, they're the National Rifle Association. But they have essentially lobbied to not allow any gun control laws to happen in recent times. An example of this is there was a study done here. I'll hide myself. But gun ownership is a risk factor for homicide in the home. So the study showed that uh, if, in homes with guns, homicide rates were higher. This came out in 1993, and then the NRA lobbied against this and said, we don't stand for this. They sued. They're not allowed to study uh, gun control things anymore. And then all of the funding that they got to do this study, they no longer get any funding for anything related to guns. Terrible organization. Just honestly, does not have the public's interest in mind whatsoever. Canada and Australia, well, what do they have in common? Well, they kind of have a somewhat similar culture to the United States, you could say. But one big difference is that when there is a mass shooting, their response is not to do thoughts and prayers, because that tends to not work. Their response is to actually tighten up the gun control laws. Every time I see a mass shooting or a big shooting in one of these countries, they always immediately do something to fix what happened. And this goes to show in this statistic here, where in the United States, they have by far the most guns per person. And this directly correlates to the gun homicides per person as well. And so this literally shows directly that gun ownerships tends to lead to more homicides and exponentially as well, because if you look in the Canada, Australia, and Norway, when these countries, their rates are not as high, and it's because not as many people have guns. There's just not as many guns. The people that do have guns are either trained, have gone through a background check, and it's not as easy to get your hands on a gun as it is in the United States, which is why they have such a high homicide rate. One thing as well that happened was the Brady Law, and basically this was a law in 1993, and it banned certain firearms and certain modifications on guns, and then it also uh, required background checks. And this actually did help out quite a bit. And if you look at this statistic here, hold on, there we go, there we go. You can actually see that since then, the amount of background checks have actually gone up. And um, and this has caused people who shouldn't have access to guns to not be able to get them at all. Now, this is not perfect, obviously. There are many loopholes. Still, 20% of legally purchased guns require no background check. And there's a lot of loopholes and it's not perfect. It has reduced gun trafficking across city lines, which is nice. Um, but the rates are still high and are still going up. And there's many reasons for this, right? It can be economic reasons. Crime goes up when the economy is bad, and that's something that's going on now. And also, you can say, well, one, there are the loopholes, and so if someone wants a gun, due to these, they can still get one. You can still buy them off of, I believe, like eBay and stuff, and like crazy work. But there is more statistics showing that in states with higher gun control laws, you actually see lower rates of gun deaths. Wow, what a surprise. Gun control actually works. I'll hide myself again here just so you can see. But in the countries on the left are the ones with the higher gun law strength, and they tend to have much, much lower rates of gun deaths. And now you see over in 16, New Mexico, and it has a super high rate. But these ones, some of them with the super high rates, what has happened is they have recently enacted these laws. So their laws look very strong, but they actually haven't been implemented long enough to really see the effect. And to further prove the gun ownership being the problem is in New Hampshire, for example, it looks like, oh, they have very relaxed gun laws and little to no gun deaths. However, if you actually look into the gun ownership in that state, the gun ownership is extremely low compared to many other states, which directly relates to why their homicide rate is so, so, so low, especially when it comes to in relation to their gun law strength. Okay? And since the Brady Law expired in 2003, there was a 17% increase in gun deaths directly from the firearms that were banned. And that just kind of shows that the gun laws were working. They were causing restrictions and they were actually helping, and then the government just let them expire. And this is frustrating because it shows that change does work and that change is possible. And especially when you relate it to other countries that have gun control, like literally as you see in this graph right over here, like other countries with gun control, it works and it's effective. But we we just don't shit, I hit my mic. We just don't see that, we just don't do it, and it's frustrating and it's annoying. And when you see something like this where you have 60% of teachers who say they are worried about a school shooting in their school, that's problematic. This is an issue. This pie graph here is not what you want to see from a developed country. This is something you see in like some random little nation, right? And this goes hand in hand with the fact that there are 12 children a day that die from gun violence, which is insane. These are people who haven't even started their lives. These are children who die for no reason due to the lack of gun control in the United States, which is unacceptable. And people need to realize that restricting guns is not a restriction to your personal life, and that it's actually to provide safety to everybody else. Gun control saves lives. It directly decreases the homicide rates and directly increases people's ability to live peacefully and safely. And like gun ownership directly correlates with homicides, and gun control is something people need to be more angry about. I understand people are, and people talk about gun control, but this is something that we need. Gun control needs to happen, and this is something that I think people are not upset enough about. Um, Super upsetting to me every time I see stats. I feel like the gun death rates are going up and up. It's super upsetting to see every time I turn on the news. I feel like there's a new shooting, new shooting. and it just feels like everyone's desensitized to shootings now. And whenever something happens, the talk is never about, oh, well, maybe we should restrict guns a little bit. It's never that. Like the White House shooting, no, guns aren't the problem. We need a ballroom, right? Like that's some bullshit. We all know that, right? And it's unfortunate to see because we have a solution that works, that has stats that show that it works, and we're not willing to do that. Um, or we can just keep doing thoughts and prayers because that always works and that stops shootings, right? And that makes the families feel better. Okay. But yeah, no, but seriously though, like people's lives are at risk. Like this is an issue, this is a problem, and this is something that we can fix, that can have a solution, but we're just not willing to do that for some reason. I mean, you have these people lobbying these organizations like the NRA or rich people who want to protect themselves, right? And like you genuinely have these people who are causing health problems and all this stuff because they're selfish, right? You know, I mean, this is an important issue, right? When you have 12 children a day dying, when you have 100 people a day dying, like this isn't just like a fun little game, right? Like this is a problem. This needs to be fixed. People should be upset, right? Um, but yeah, I guess that's really all I gotta say on the issue. If you did like the video, I would appreciate if you liked and subscribed. Just like what Goddamn. Just like what this guy's doing. This guy's chill. You can tell because he's subscribing to my channel. So you should try to be like him because he's chill. You know what I mean? But if you got anything you want to comment, if you agreed with me, you want to say something, or you want to ask a question, or maybe you disagreed, maybe you think I'm stupid, let me know. I'd love to hear that. Okay? I'd love to hear why I'm stupid. Other than that, like and subscribe again on your alt account, okay? Both, all of your accounts. Other than that, I'll see you next time.